Welcome to the Happy Weight podcast. My name is Aoife Dean. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode, I'm going to be chatting about food noise. And in case you're wondering who I am or why I'm talking about this, if this is your first episode listening or anything, I suppose I started counting my Weight Watchers points when I was 11, when I was in primary school. And I wasn't overweight by any means at all. In fact, I haven't grown a lot since I was 11 years old. So same size and height probably as I am now, more or less. But, you know, if you grow up in diet culture, like my whole family were dieting, our kitchen table was had shelves in it or drawers in it that was like stuffed to the brim of Weight Watchers stuff. People in my big family were on and off doing the cabbage soup diet, and like just irrelevant of my family, whatever about my family, I was in diet culture. You know, every article, every magazine, every, supplement in the paper, TV, media, it was all about weight. It was all about women losing weight in my world anyway, as that like dieting, you do it to get happier and slimmer. And when you're slimmer, you'll be happier. So yeah, no major surprise why I started counting Weight Watchers points when I was 11. Around 14, then I started binge eating, which is a quite very common outcome of dieting. So dieting in most cases is going to cause overeating, because I suppose overeating is eating in the absence of hunger. And anytime we say, I'm going to be good tomorrow and therefore continue to eat, even though we're already full, that's what causes a weight problem. And so when we're always dieting, when we're always about to start a new thing next Monday or next week's going to be better, whatever, that's par for course with that is overeating. Par for course with that is weight gain. And I suppose just a slightly heightened version of that then is binge eating disorder. So binge eating disorder, for me anyways, was when I was really overeating. So I was definitely full and I was definitely uncomfortable, but there was this desperation and urgency that I needed to get all the food in me. And I know now that's because I had food scarcity, because I was dieting all the time. I had created my own version of food scarcity. So even though I was in, a normal family with normal incomes or whatever, I had created in my mind the idea that food was going to be going away tomorrow. Self-inflicted, of course, but that for any human and probably any animal, if food is going to be going away tomorrow, if there's going to be less food available next week, you're going to be overeating. And that's going to be a real limbic system, caveman part of the brain, not in your conscious control. So I was doing a lot of binge eating because I was doing a lot of threatening myself with, a super shredded next week or next month or whatever. So yeah, the clothes in my wardrobe used to be 3 to 4 sizes than the size that's in my wardrobe now. So like a lot of dieters as well, I yo-yoed up and down. None of it was good crack. And binge eating as well, I suppose, it's a kind of maladaptive response to emotion. So I suppose maybe as a teenager, I was home alone a lot. I was lonely. Being a teenager comes with a range of emotions anyway. So that was my maladaptive coping mechanism, being, if I was slimmer, I'd be happier. So maybe I'll diet, maybe I'll overeat. So it's good to know that, I feel. It's good to, not see ourselves as separate and see ourselves as, just like any other subject in a research project, that if we're overeating, we know that what we're doing right now in that moment it's a maladaptive coping mechanism. So there are emotions going on. There are probably things to be sorted out in our day or in our life, or we do need soothing from a certain emotion, or we need to get a certain emotion out. And we're not doing that. We're maladaptively stuffing our faces basically to get away from all of that. So yeah, so the binge eating and the up and down 4 sizes, that lasted probably till I was the bones of 30, and I'm 38 now. And so that's the crack there. And meanwhile, through all of that, I went to college when I was normal college age, and I got a degree in dietetics. In recent years, I completed a master's in nutritional medicine. And then I've 2 diplomas in hypnotherapy. I'm an NLP coach. I'm a mind coach. I've all these kind of mindset qualifications. And that's because for me, and I think this might come as no surprise, it wasn't because of lack of knowledge of the food pyramid. That's not why I had binge eating disorder or bulimia or was up and down 4 clothes sizes. It wasn't because I was unaware of fruit and vegetables or anything like that. It's rarely the case that nutrition has anything to do with eating and weight problems. So that's my story. And then if we're talking about food noise is when it's kind of like there's an FM radio on in our head all the time. And that FM radio is like, what weight are you now? And what are you doing about your weight? And where are you with this whole weight loss? And, was that right yesterday what you ate? Was that a lot? Was that too much? Geez, I'd say you're definitely not exercising enough. How much exercise now are you going to do next week? What could you do now exercise-wise next week? And, should you actually just cut out carbs? Maybe carbs aren't good for you. Maybe this isn't disordered, but maybe you just don't suit carbs. And, so just non-stop chatter in our mind, basically, about the recent past with our eating, say what we ate yesterday, last week, last month, the story so far with our weight, if we're always thinking about the story so far. I remember I was always amending my story about my weight, because I suppose if you hate your weight, you're very conscious of it, and you usually have your media statement story ready for anyone who wants to talk about it. So, I was ready with, I actually do have a low metabolism, or any of those stories. And I was always amending my story of why I'm overweight or why I struggle with weight. So a lot of ruminating on that. And then a lot of over planning for the future, planning your exercise, planning your meals, just planning in your head. So that's what food noise is. And if that sounds familiar, right, this is really good news. This is really good news, because if you've thought that maybe it's my age, maybe it's my destiny to be overweight, maybe it's my genetics, maybe it's just innate in me, it's just natural for me to struggle with weight, to be overweight, etc. If you've had, or maybe it's the medications you're on, or if you've had any of those stories of things that you've thought might be contributing to your weight, it's great now, right? Because if you have food noise, the good news is it's none of those things. All of those things might play a factor, but none of them are big enough to have a weight problem, basically, or eating issues. But if you food noise, you're not going to be the exception to the rule. In the studies on weight problems, I read so much for my dissertation and my master's on all of this. If you have food noise, it's kind of you're not going to have a weight problem. Wayne Dyer has this saying, if you squeeze an orange, you're going to get orange juice. You're not going to squeeze an orange and get tomato juice. So it's the same, if what our head sounds like is a lot of food noise, the behaviors that are going to come out of that, the relationship with our body and food that is going to come out of that, are not going to be the kind of choices and relationship that someone without food noise would have. So the food noise is the thing we need to identify as a problem. And when I figured all of this out, especially in the diploma in hypnotherapy and stuff, I was like, oh, right, yeah. It made a lot of sense, because then I kind of could look back over the years and I could be like, but sure, how the hell could I have a good relationship with food? How could I be a healthy weight if all of this was going on in my head all the time? And people without weight issues don't have any of that. And I think food noise is more in public awareness now because of Ozempic. And I'm delighted Ozempic exists. And I think anyone who isn't delighted Ozempic exists is ignorant and uneducated in the field, because, you wouldn't say to, someone with blood pressure, oh, just cop on, you don't need meds. And disordered eating and eating disorders, if you don't get it, you're lucky, basically. If you don't know how severe it can be, you're lucky. But anyways, who am I preaching to here? If you're listening to this podcast, you probably know how hard it can be. But the only thing I don't like about, I suppose, some of the press on Ozempic is people can say, and because of Ozempic, my food noise went away. And I'd just be afraid that then people would think that, oh, you need a medication for the food noise to go away. And you don't need medication for food noise to go away. And yeah, getting over our old mindset with eating and weight, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's overnight. But it certainly is possible to change our mindset and how our mind, because our mindset really is how our mind sounds, the thoughts we think about that topic. So just like you wouldn't say, oh, someone was born like it's innate for someone to be bad with money or something. It's like, no, you can have an awful mindset with money, but then you can change your relationship with money and you can be in a quite good place with money regardless of what you earn. And then some people have an awful mindset with money, so it doesn't matter what they earn, they're always broke and in scarcity. And it's the exact same with our weight and our eating. Like we could have previously or to date had a bad mindset with food, i.e. the thoughts we think about food or eating or weight haven't been positive. They've been stressful, guilt-ridden, controlling, whatever it might be. But like that's our past. It doesn't have to be our future. We do have the ability to change our thoughts. We absolutely have the ability to change how we see things. And that's another Wayne Dyer quote actually, is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So you might have heard my last episode on measuring progress. That's a great example. People can feel like they're always stuck at the wrong weight and they're never progressing. And that's purely the way they're looking at it, the mindset they're choosing, to measure their progress. So we can change pretty much how we look at all of this. So I'm going to jump straight in and basically like food noise. So that FM radio in our head, always talking about calories, always talking about where are you with your weight, what's going to happen, when is it going to happen, blah, 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 blah. What that is control. So control is the opposite of trust. So someone without eating and weight issues has a lot of trust in all the areas related to eating and weight. So they don't need to pick apart, overanalyze, try to get the bottom of in their head with any of these things because they're just trusting, So I think for me, that was helpful anyway, that, I'm trying to basically rumination is us trying to control or I suppose prepare ourselves for things by, going over and over and over and over and over again about stuff in our head. So that's what it is. So for me, it's just really helpful. Like I said, we're not going to be the exception to the rule. Like controlling behaviors with food are not going to get us to a happy weight, first of all. Yeah. And happy ever after with our weight. So controlling behaviors comes from this kind of controlling thinking where we're like, but how many calories did you have? And when would you lose the weight? And blah, 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 just thinking and rethinking, thinking and trying to get to the bottom of it all the time. That is us not trusting. So there's 4 main parts that we have to develop trust in. Because there's that saying as well, you don't fight darkness, you just turn on lights. So we don't need to be like, stop controlling, or stop thinking about it, stop thinking about it. What we need to do is we need to increase our trust, which is the opposite of control, in all the areas relating to eating and weight. So the first area of trust we need to build on is trust in food, right? So we could be kind of like, I ate chips last night, chips are going to kill me. I probably have, high cholesterol now. That's probably so bad for my body. I actually remember I used to imagine bad food rotting my insides. It's a bit extreme, I know. And unfortunately for me, I have a very vivid picture imagination. So I could literally imagine my duodenum, my guts and everything being affected by bad food. So that's horrific. Hopefully you're not as extreme as that. But just the whole oh my God, how much fat was in that? Oh, geez, there was so much fat and all of that. We're not trusting that food exists and people eat it and people are okay. So yeah, if people eat stuff in an extreme quantity, that's not going to be good. If they're eating burgers in an extreme quantity, it's not going to be good. And if you eat cabbage in an extreme quantity, your body has resources to break down and digest foods, but of course it has a limit to those resources. You can't just continue on with large quantities of a food, without a break, without a difference in foods or whatever. Yeah, of course that's going to cause problems. But I would say 90% of the time with disordered eating, we're giving out to ourselves for the fact we had a takeaway yesterday. a takeaway or a few pastries earlier in the day before the takeaway. And like, that's where we have to kind of trust food and remind ourselves, other people do this, yeah? Other people successfully can have a day where they had a few pastries in the morning or whatever, and just between the jigs and the reels of the day, they ended up getting a takeaway with their family that night, and they didn't collapse into heart attacks or anything that night, or wake up fat or anything like that the next day. So we just have to talk ourselves down off the cliff, because the problem is with all the food noises, it's gone on and on and on in our brain for years and kind of unchecked. It's very, very illogical. Like, a lot of the food noise, if you start listening to the FM radio in your head about your eating, your weight, or food in general, some of it will be illogical. And what is also very helpful to remember, and you'll hear neuroscientists say this all the time, your brain is not wired to be happy. It's wired to be right. It's wired to survive. So your brain will come up with all sorts of illogical fear stories, to kind of keep you on your toes. And so when we're getting out of eating and weight issues now, I think it's really important that, like, in order for us to be happy, we'd have to start proving all our thoughts wrong. Like I said, we've a lot of negative thoughts about our eating, our body, our ability to be slim, whatever. And we'd have to now, one by one, start seeing the contrary evidence to all of that. Like, of course I can change. Of course I can pivot, whatever. So yeah, the next area we want to start building trust in. And like, these could be really good affirmations. Like, definitely my current clients, or if you've got the Happy Hypno Weight program, there's going to be affirmations and recordings on all of these things. And after today's episode, I'm definitely going to make a new recording of that, and I'll check with Jack, see is there some way that I can make that accessible to the people listening to the podcast as well. But the next area is trust in your body, that your body has the ability to break down food and take the goodness out of it. Your body also has the ability to tell you when you've eaten too much. So one of our biggest fears is that, like, we could just get fat overnight. Before I know it, I'm up a stone. And that's not really possible. To be up a stone, there'd have to be, like, you're very full, you eat a meal anyway. You're very uncomfortable, you keep eating. You're very full, you eat another meal. You feel really lethargic, heavy, you eat anyways. Like, it's never going to spring on you. Like, excess weight is never going to come out from nowhere. It's going to be a lot of ignoring signals, because generally we're so in our head for whatever reason. So now you have to kind of remember, like, if you've ever had a time where you remember being uncomfortably full, if you ever remember a time feeling hungry, if you ever remembered a time where a food tasted nice, you ever remember a time where food didn't taste nice, if you ever remember a time being really hungry, if you ever remember a time being really cold, really warm, really full, really overfull, well, then your body has signals. Your body is talking to you. You might remember eating an ice cream one time and it being gorgeous. You might remember another time eating an ice cream and it being nothing to write home about. So your body is sending you individual signals based on the food, based on the time that you're eating, based on the time that you need it, or what your body needs at the time, I mean. So you can trust your body. Like I said, if you ever remember a signal ever from your body, there's signals there. We just maybe haven't been listening to them. So building the trust in your body. Then the next thing is building the trust in your weight, like something that used to go around and around and around in my mind, because I suppose I had built the belief that it's different for me than it is for other people. Like, yeah, other people can make changes and lose a bit of weight or whatever. But for me, I'm kind of stuck, and I may be like the exception to the rule. And no matter what I do, I'll always be the same weight. And like, that is a ridiculous belief. So basically, the second law of thermodynamics, energy can't be created or destroyed, it just changes form. So that applies to everything in the universe except my body. Like, that's what I believe. So I believed, like, it doesn't actually matter how much I exercise. It doesn't matter how little I eat. I'll never change weight. And it's like, oh, right. So when it comes to your body, energy doesn't change form. You're the exception to that universal rule. Like, that's ridiculous. And one of the things that I used to really cop myself on with is like, okay, so if you were dropped in a desert island for 30 days without any food, you're saying you would come back from that island the exact same weight. That 30 days without food would have no difference to your body than 30 days of your normal overeating. Like, that's ridiculous. So that's one of the stories that helped me break my old beliefs about my weight and realize that I can trust my body does respond to stuff. And this is where the scale screws us up, because there's a difference between a week where you do exercise and don't do exercise. There's probably a difference in how toned you feel, how energetic you feel, what your appetite is like. Like, so many factors are changed by our exercise. But if we've been obsessed with the scales, we're like, you see, didn't go down a pound. With all that walking, didn't go down a pound. And that's ignorance too. That's just not understanding that muscle builds when we do exercise, and it changes a lot of things in our body. So now we need to trust in our weight. It's like, nah, your body does actually feel different. If you have a month where you exercise 4 days a week versus a month where you don't exercise at all, it does feel different. And your body does feel different if you go to bed 4 nights in a row really stuffed and waking up stuffed versus 4 nights in a row where you had a lovely supper, you go to bed feeling nice, you wake up feeling nice. Like, there is a difference. Of course there's a difference. And like, our body feeling better is the start of weight loss. Our body not feeling as heavy, food tasting better, not being as bloated or sluggish or whatever. That's all those happy signs are the signs that we're helping our body finally reach its potential and let go of the weight it never wanted anyways. Then the next one, and it sounds so crazy to be saying it, but we want to trust in food availability. So, all of these trust things, right? The reason I'm saying them is to give you a tool so that when you're in the moment, right, and when the FM radio in your head is being like, come on, it's Saturday night, just eat everything. So that's food noise, because our problem if we've excess weight is that we tend to eat in the absence of hunger, whatever the reason. So that could come down to us being really full, actually, and then the food noise starting into, come on, it's Saturday night, you should eat it, you should finish it, blah, blah, blah. And the issue there would be food availability. We're kind of saying, if I don't eat the minstrels now, I'm not too sure they'll be there tomorrow morning. If I don't eat the takeaway now, I'm not too sure the takeaway will be there tomorrow morning. And, we caused that, basically. We would have said, you're not allowed to eat takeaway tomorrow. This is your last takeaway for a month. You're not allowed to eat chocolate now after this. This is your last night eating chocolate. So we're the ones that caused the food scarcity. So now, nothing changes until you change something. So now a big change for me was like, Aoife, you're full. Have the takeaway for breakfast tomorrow morning. Have the rest of the takeaway for lunch tomorrow. Have chocolate with your coffee in the morning. Like, Cadbury's is not closing down. There is as much chocolate available to you at 8 a.m. on a Thursday as there is at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night. Like, there is always food available. And I know, it's such a crazy thing for us to have to say over and over again. Another thing I had to say to myself is, no one is ever coming to take food off of you. And when I start a program with a person and they're all signed up and they're coming in next week or whatever, I always have to tell them, by the way, when you come in next Thursday, I'm not going to be taking food away from you. I'm not going to be, taking food away from you, because even though I say that, even though I stress that, most people starting the program will eat loads the night before they start. And that's food scarcity. And we're not overweight because we're not good enough dieters. It's not that our good days aren't good enough. We're overweight because there's sometimes that we eat in the absence of hunger because of our stories we tell ourselves that are just not true. And so we have to start building a story now that, pet, if you want donuts tomorrow morning for breakfast, have them. If you want to take away every night next week, get a takeaway every night this next week. And because at no point do you need to overeat, do you need to make yourself feel sick or gross or anything. There's some people who they do eat out every night of the week and they're not overweight because at no point do they overeat. So we need to favor food abundance now over overeating, because what we were doing before was we were overeating and saying tomorrow I'll be good, and that made us overweight. So now to get to a healthy weight, we have to do the opposite, that there's loads of gorgeous food, but we never need to eat when we're already full, or we never need to make ourselves uncomfortable with food. So they are the 4 things that we're building our trust in our food. We're building trust in our body. We're building trust in our weight and our ability to change our weight. And we're trusting that food will always, always be available. You are never at a last hurrah with food. There will always be more later. And the other thing that I suppose comes into food noise as well is that, like, I'd love to think my podcast here has helped you know the importance of muting or turning down the volume of that food noise in your head. It is vital in order for us to come out the other side of weight problems and be a healthy weight and be our happy weight forever and ever. It is vital that we would not have food noise in our head. And as we're improving, and I see it with all my clients, they're getting better because their food noise is going down. And as their food noise is going down, their weight is going down at the same time. So it's super important. And I think once we know the importance of it, we can be really strict on ourselves as well. And so when my FM radio would start up again being like, but where are you with the weight loss? And when will you lose the weight? And how will you lose it? And should you do this? And should you do that? And should you have eaten that yesterday? And was that too many calories? And blah, blah, blah. Whenever that started, I'd be like, Pet, you want to be someone without a weight problem, okay? So you don't get to think like that anymore. So just being actually really strict about with ourselves, being like, you go think about something else now, because by you interrupting those thoughts and thinking about anything else, like think about your gorgeous kids or your gorgeous nieces and nephews or something that makes you really happy, or like think about your holiday coming up, or think about that picture that you think you look lovely in, or just think about anything that makes you happy. Think about that, because what you're doing then is, it's a glimmer. You know, the opposite of a trigger is a glimmer. Like if you can park food noise thoughts and instead rather, you know, food noise thoughts make us feel awful. So if you can actively catch a food noise thought and instead think of something that makes your heart sing, like you've just got a glimpse into what your future is going to be. Like that's what it's actually going to be like to not have a weight problem, where your mind is quiet because you've trained it over and over again, that whenever it goes on to the topic of food noise, you train it into thinking something else. And neuroplasticity is the science looking into how we can rewire our brain. So like I said, this isn't easy. This isn't overnight, but it will be like training a puppy to pee outside. So when you hear the thoughts like, but am I at the wrong weight today? Or when am I going to see results? Or when am I going to lose it? Whenever you're into that noise again, you catch it, and like training a puppy to pee outside, you lift up the puppy, you put it outside. Lift up the puppy, put it outside. Until one day the puppy knows to go outside anyways. It's the same with our thoughts. We be like, oh, you don't think like that anymore, remember? Oh, you don't think like that anymore, remember? What would you like to think about? What would make you happy to think about? And if we do that enough and enough and enough, like our mind is impartial. Your mind will just think whatever way you've trained it to think. So in time, and I know this as an example of it, and there's so many examples of it, and you've probably changed your mind in other areas of your life. Like your mind then automatically goes to the new way of thinking. You won't need to train it forever. So when you're finding it hard or grueling, your mind keeps going back to the old food noise stuff, just remember it's the darkest before the dawn. You will be able to reduce the volume of it, and any increment of reducing the volume of food noise in the week is going to be an increment in weight loss, I would say, over time. So be really proud about that and see it as a glimmer, a sign of things to come, something you can build on. I hope you found today's episode helpful. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope I'll catch you on another episode again. Thanks so much.